Oh, okay. The problem that you've mentioned with dogmatic relativistic individualism seems to me that the paper that you seem to have cited seems to me as if that was a paper not about society at large, but more about what a professor might go through or what a teacher might go through, or what somebody who's training an intern might go through. And the problem is really specific to getting individuals to let aside what it is they're trying to bring to the table and to listen and to engage in dialogue such that they can learn the history of the traits, the canonization of the particular school of thought or the particular thing that they are there for, or that they are presumably there to obtain. And so I think, I mean, the whole thing reminds me of going to Egypt and seeing all of these really common sculptures lined up and wondering how did these independent artisans from these different decades and these different times produce such similar looking pieces, and then going into these tombs and seeing all of this commonality, all of the same depth of relief on slabs, different depictions of different things, but the way in which these artisans put together these slabs, the way in which they carved them out, appeared as if there was a commonality of value, just the opposite of a dogmatism of individualism or relative individualism. It seemed as if it was a dogmatic religious communalism. It seemed as if it could have only been put together if everyone had laid their individual or had never conceived or focused upon themselves as individualistic. And so the capitalistic comparison, to me, the capitalistic comparison is one to be noted, meaning that there is a comparison being made. But to me, that is the capitalistic approach to dogmatic individualism sprouts from denoting a common problem. It's kind of like if I look at a tree, I know that each leaf on that tree relative to the stem of the tree or the branch or the sun that's shining on it that lays in a different direction. It holds a different spatio-temporal position, just like individuals. So if leaves leaf and people or people are peopling, then I need to denote that I can step back from it and look at it and see the commonality amongst people, to say that all of us have and share a unique center, and that in that center, in focusing upon one center, they can find themselves uniquely, but uniquely what? Uniquely the center of a human, and of a human what? Of a human family. So people amongst the human family, like the leaves leaf, but if you zoom in on the leaf, if you zoom in on any two leaves on a tree and you say, well, the sun is hitting this one this direction and it's not hitting this one because it's hidden, then you could say, well, the capitalists might come in and say, well, let's create a shade for this one, or this one might need shade or want shade or desire shade, where this one may desire not shade, but some sort of lotion or a higher breeze or something like that. So there is a common value found in even the progeneration of capitalism. So my position here is that the paper that you're quoting seems to stem from a disgruntled nature of being a professor and dealing with freshmen or sophomores or individuals that are coming in that are more reluctant to do that because they have come from the notion of finding themselves, or they're trying to find their unique position amongst a population so as to stand out. And if you call this pernicious, this seems to be the distinction. Like if you take the Western canon of thought as opposed to the Oriental canon of thought, the Occidental versus the Oriental, and you compare those both to the Egyptian commonality found within their art, which may not have been art, art in the same definition. And you say, well, yeah, we have this, traditional landscapes and traditional themas and traditional portraits, and then you compare all of that to modern lowbrow hot rod tattoo art, and to say that what's going on is pernicious, to actually claim that, to adhere to that, has me questioning what your value is. I often hear you say that you cannot believe as a prelude to many things that you say, and that makes me wonder, what is Corey not examining? What is Corey adhered to? What is he so focused on from within the canon of his own subscribed, prescribed, and reinforced amongst colleagues at university that would lead him to a certain disdain or a lack of empathy or a lack of workaround to find out what it is he can't believe, why it is he can't believe it. To me, I'm assuming everybody both rests within an individual sense of themselves, and as soon as they want to focus on that, wall themselves, place it, call it the ego, if you will, and denote and ricochet within that, that's one aspect of a personality, and that can become problematic and self-defeating and self-deceitful. But on the other hand, if one opens themselves up entirely and they find themselves within a canonized history of thought, and that's the direction that they'd like to focus their idealism and the teleology of their life, then they themselves, like you, I would think, would need to wake up of what the limits of that particular canon are, and to find that papers that are written that find something pernicious, find relativism pernicious, is simply to not see kind of the Mobius nature, the refocusing, the mere fact I can take a photo of that tree from a distance and see it as part of the human family or the tree of humanity, or I can zoom right into any individual tree or any individual cell. I mean, some of the leaves are falling, some are larger, some are budding. We go in motions, we go in cycles. So civilization at one time, I think, was much more communally, dogmatic, communalistic, and that is the stem of religion, not the individualism, not the saying I see it this way. I mean, if someone's going to argue that they see it this way, they're going to bounce off and be abutted against individuals like yourself or whole communities that say, no, you can't come at this shallow. It's not that shallow. But on contrast, and contra to that, to find it. To find what's going on is not a symptom, I think becomes a symptom of what it is that one might be lacking. And so it's kind of an interesting problem. It's kind of like those Mobius surgical tubes that you can push your hand through and the inside unfolds to the outside, and you can keep doing it, kind of those water weenie sort of surgical tubes. So that I'm trying to say that the lay of the land, if you're trying to fall into hierarchies and into position and to denote these as the first place, well, we have this canon of thought, and we're going to stand on that. And we're going to start there from which to say what is correct and what's pernicious and what's not. Then that's great, but to not be able to flex and reflex and refocus on that canon becomes a problem in and of itself. So I do see why you would call it pernicious. I just can't help but see that to say that one cannot involve themselves with a degree, an authentic and genuine degree of insight into seeing tattoo art or seeing lowbrow art and finding out what does that mean. I'm so used to this other view. One to allow themselves that expansion. I think that the problem is that one does not allow themselves to expand, and that when one says that they cannot believe this and that just says that they have not themselves opened up the investigation in which to find out why it is they don't believe what it is they believe. I mean, people quest for truth all the time, and your video about your talking to the scientists seems to be kind of in contra to what you're stating here, trying to get a positing a position on you. Echo 19er, what's your 120?